3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the
Hi.
Alpha Primal Podcast. We are on episode 11. Last week was episode 10. We did a
Episode 11.
little
All the way up there.
recap on intermittent
Double
fasting
digits.
and our thoughts behind that. So if you are interested, check out last week's podcast if you want to know more about intermittent fasting.
Yes, episode 10 was intermittent fasting. I know that I've had a lot of questions about that. So, yeah, any of my clients, go back and check that out. If you have further questions about it, we'll talk about it. But yeah.
Some of our favorite meals from last week, we made the quinoa bowls.
Mhm.
We've been really liking making those. They're super easy to make.
Yeah.
They make a lot, and
Lots
they
of it.
last all week long, and sometimes even into the weekend, which is helpful for like that lunch meal for Saturday and Sundays.
Yeah. And especially it seems like, speaking of intermittent fasting, I usually do a fast Saturday mornings, it seems like, right before my workout at around midday. And then having that quinoa bowl is pretty key, pretty nice. So I'm not making a bad decision after that fast when all the hormones is like everything I want and all the terrible foods just start running through my head. Having that last little bit of quinoa was nice.
Definitely. We've kind of been having like a go out or a special meal on Friday nights.
Yes.
And then Saturday nights.
What was this Friday night?
This Friday night we picked up Rock Bottom.
Yes, a restaurant. Well, we
And-
learned our lesson.
What?
No pizza.
Yeah, last week was pizza, so this week for Patrick's stomach's sake, we went with something else. We got some sandwiches from Rock Bottom.
Yes.
Um,
No pizza.
we're kind of using Friday as our, kind of go out or not go out, but
Date night.
date night.
Date night in.
We'll maybe venture out eventually.
We will. Only 10 weeks today.
10 weeks. Ooh.
So. Yeah, we used to do the Sunday morning brunch. When it was nicer out, we would walk to a cafe, get up and walk to a cafe in the morning. But taken to eating breakfast at homes on Sunday mornings now.
Yeah.
What did we make this morning?
This morning we made pancakes.
What was in the pancakes?
They are banana, oatmeal, and egg pancakes.
All great ingredients, right, guys?
So it's not too bad. It's not like a pancake mix, but there were also chocolate chips.
That's the
which,
one.
You can't have pancakes without chocolate chips.
And
in
at
my
least if you're
opinion.
making it at home and it's Sunday morning, I get it.
So,
It's not something we do all the time.
We also been using Saturday as making like a date night in meal.
Mm-hmm.
So this week we made steak for Saturday night dinner. Last week we made ribs.
Steak on the iron skillet.
Yeah.
Cast
Yeah,
iron
definitely.
skillet. It was good. Seasoned it up a little bit. What was last week?
Last week we made the ribs.
That's right. No, I got my mom's recipe. I followed my mom's recipe.
Slow cooked them in the oven.
Yep. Slow cooked them in the oven and last little bit on the grill. It was good. So we've had last couple Saturday night date night cooking nights together have been pretty successful.
Yeah.
I'm liking that. It's nice that we have used some of the meat from the butcher box that we get.
Right.
That usually gives us a good portion of.
We usually use the butcher box, most of it for the meals for the week, but sometimes we'll get some specialty things like the ribs and steak. We also got scallops last week, so we can use some of those.
Next Saturday.
We can use some of those specialty things as like a Saturday night, and then usually there might be some leftovers from that meal too.
For like the Sunday afternoon snack type of that. Yeah, so we don't have to necessarily eat out on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
For sure.
How were your workouts this week?
Good. Yesterday was really good. Yesterday was a good run. So it seems like my runs always morph into more, and not necessarily more as in like, I just start running and I go for a longer run. I hate long runs. I dread long runs. You could usually cap me out at about a 5K. I don't like running more than that. So I started my run off. I started off a jog as a warm up because I wanted to do hills yesterday. My jog usually by the end of it, I usually jogged about like 12 minutes. By the last 4 minutes, I'm into a full on if you would see me out there with these long legs, like full on gallop, if you will. Just sort of slinking along here through the neighborhoods.
We'll try to get a recording of that.
Oh God. But and then I walked over to the hill, and it turned out to be I don't know. I just kept going. I've gotten into this sort of. I've been liking getting into this mindset of just a long, slow grind type of workout. Sort of get into a different mentality as far as in my own head and push a little bit harder than I normally would if I was just sort of in a gym. So I did 30 minutes of, up the hill, you run up the hill, 20 step ups.
There's a bench at the top.
There's a bench at the top of the hill, 20 step ups, 20 air squats, jog back down the hill, run back up the hill. So I ended up doing 10 rounds. I got to.
10 rounds.
I did. I got to 10 rounds.
Were your legs on fire?
Yeah. I mean, that's 200 of each of those. But I got to around 8 or so, and I saw I had the potential, if I picked it up a little bit. I was getting tired and I was slowing down a little bit. I had the potential to go under 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, I mean,
speed it up.
Why not? I mean, not necessarily speed it up, just like don't slow down, type of.
Stay on top of it.
Yeah. So that was nice.
Did you get it in?
I did. I finished it in 29:41.
Ooh.
Yeah, right underneath.
Kind of close.
Yeah. Well, I had. Well, I had plenty of time, so I finished up the uphill with like 2 minutes left. Finished up the step ups in 40 seconds or so. Finished up the 20 squats with I want to say 50 seconds to go. And the hill is probably only 100 to 120 meters. I'm not going to call it 150 meters. It's 120 meters. So it's downhill. So I had 120 meters downhill to jog in 50 seconds. So I knew I had it, but I didn't want to necessarily take my time on the downhill. So
but
my workouts overall this week were pretty good. I got a couple of strength ones in. Coming up to within the next couple of days here, really, we're going to be doing a 30-day challenge-esque, if you will. I'll throw that out to everybody of the details of what my 30-day challenge will be and what that will entail, what Ashley is doing for her 30 days. It's sort of a lead up into Thanksgiving and basically the whole. Oh man, is she gonna start? She's moving around a little bit. It's 30 days up until basically Thanksgiving, and then the holiday season. Try to carry over at least some of those habits for the next.
So trying to cleanse a little bit and also do some habit forming.
And introduce a couple of
new habits.
New class. Well, I'm also doing a couple of classes.
Oh yeah.
Adding in a couple of classes, see if those are something that I can get into the habit of doing. The two major ones are hot yoga and jiu-jitsu. I've had a wrestling background and jiu-jitsu background training, so I want to get back into that. Yoga has always been something that's interested me. I've never really gotten to the practice of yoga. I do yoga. I add yoga moves into my workouts, but I've never gotten into the actual continual practice of yoga. So that's something that I'm gonna implement to see if that's something I want to
keep
going and do more of, especially with the. I will say it's sort of a I don't know, selfish is the right word to say, but I hate the cold. So if there's anything during the winter time I can do to get into a hot sauna and still consider it a workout, I'm not to say that it's not a workout, but it's not something I normally do. So that's going to be. I'll throw the details out to all you guys of what we're going to do. Again, for those 30 days, if you want to, if that's something in your head and you want to start to implement a couple of the things that we're doing,
or make your own.
It's a great way to get into the holiday season without any sort of regret, or not regret, but how would you say it? What would you call it? Just feeling bad about eating all that stuff. Guilt. Thank you.
That's
the word.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
My workouts this week, I did pretty good. I got three workouts in.
You did? Yeah.
I think I did a deadlift day, a pull-up day, and then yesterday was lunges. Got some walks in during the week.
Mm-hmm.
I do get a lot of steps in with Arden.
Yes, you do.
So
bounces and
lots of
steps.
bouncing and walking.
How'd your body feel this week?
Felt pretty good. The soreness is kind of going away. Still feeling a little sore here and there,
Of course.
but
Week 2.
not like the first couple workouts. So
Yeah.
that's nice.
That is good.
It's going away.
Yeah.
But feeling stronger. Just trying to keep going and make sure I'm staying on top of it. 3 workouts a week is my goal.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to start into.
Seems pretty doable for 3 weeks. Three workouts.
I'm in week 3. I did day 1 yesterday, so going on to the rest of the workouts this week, liking the plan that you've created so far.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially.
Do you have any advice for anybody else who is sort of following this plan, or?
I would say if you have to modify it, definitely modify it. Some of the things are maybe more reps than I can handle. Like I think on one, like the pull-up day, it was 10 pull-ups. Since that's one of my
In the workout? In the circuit?
In the strength.
Oh, in the strength?
Yeah. So since I'm a little bit more weak there,
Well,
and I'm
we
only doing.
we just pulled out the band. We didn't have the band out. That was one of the things. So we did pull out the band.
So I modified that down to 5 because I was doing pull-up negatives instead of regular pull-ups, obviously. So definitely modify to what works for you. You know, if you're feeling fatigued in a certain movement, then kind of cut back the reps. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my advice as of right now. I think we should.
One of the big things, especially for pull-ups, that I like with what we have at the gym. 2XL has this assisted pull-up machine.
Oh yeah.
So you could still do that the pull-up action, but obviously with a counterweight assisting you. So and I really like that just because I do think the pull-up motion is an extremely important motion, but not a lot of people have the upper body strength to even do one pull-up. So this is a great it's a great machine just to counterbalance that. Or like at home we have these big long bands, not those smaller bands that you see and you put around your ankles or knees or something like that, but we have those big, thicker, long bands that you can use.
Yeah, you can wrap around the pull-up bar.
Right.
And I mean, I used to be able to do 3-4 pull-ups by myself.
Yeah.
Now I could do 0.
Well,
so it's kind of.
I think you can get a couple in. No?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like you kind of gotta start back to ground zero, which was pull-up negatives.
Right.
Which, if you're not sure what that means, it means that you kind of jump up to the top of the pull-up bar and then slowly release down, controlled for a few seconds.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Ashley is really short, so she not only has to jump up, but she brings this little step stool. She steps up and then jumps up.
It's cute.
No, you are innovative at home, and that's what that's what I'm saying. That's what you need to be. It's not going to be easy it's easy for me because I'm tall and I can jump up, and when I jump up, my chin's over there. If your arms are fully extended before you even jump, it's really hard for you to get back out there. And there were a couple things that I noticed, and I actually made a point with you because at a certain point. And this is another modification that we made right on the spot while you were doing your workout. At a certain point, you weren't able to get the entire negative. You weren't able to go from the top, jump all the way up to the top, and then control yourself all the way to the part where your arms are fully extended.
Right.
So we modified that and literally had you just pull yourself out from parallel, so from 90 degrees, and control that last little bit.
Yeah.
Control that last half instead of that first half. And you crushed that. You did great with that. So again, even in that workout, it's important for those modifications to take place, and don't think of it as I didn't get 5 negative pull-ups and I only got 3.5 or 3 halves, and it's like, who cares? You did the work. Your muscles are burning. You're doing the correct work. You're not
doing it sloppy
right.
or messing up your form, because that's when you can risk injury.
Right. And you're working that little bit of it that seemed to be the hardest part. So you're working those sticking points. You're working those weak spots, basically.
Yeah.
No, that was good. I liked it.
Yeah.
I thought you did great.
Thanks. All right. Well, let's move into what we're talking about.
This week's topic.
Episode 11. We're talking about the 1% rule.
Yeah.
So, this is going to be a 2-part episode. So this first one, we're kind of going into
One of
what
two.
is the
Everybody's
1%
doing
rule.
that these days. You know, Infinity Wars, Twilight. Oh, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? Harry Potter. Harry Potter had 2 parts. Lord of the Rings.
So this part one. Part 1 is going to be, you're going to explain the 1% rule and kind of about how it applies to your life and movement.
Yes.
And then next week we're going to talk about the 1% rule, how it applies to my life and yours. And
Well,
the nutrition
how you
stuff.
introduced it into my life through nutrition. So today's more how I. So the idea. I don't know. I was talking to Ashley. I don't know if I've necessarily coined the phrase the 1% rule. I know she's following a coach right now, and after I told her about this topic that I wanted to do, all of a sudden he threw out a video and it was basically saying the same exact thing, and I was like, well, I mean, I didn't hear this guy say it, so I'm still going with the fact that I called it the 1% rule.
You coined it.
I didn't coin it. I'm just saying I didn't steal it from anybody.
Never.
Hey. So the 1% rule for me, it really started. The idea started taking form when I hurt myself in college. Well, it started, I guess, when I hurt myself in college, competing in track. It was just like while I was there was times where I was just sitting there in this tremendous amount of pain, and it really only felt good when I was laying in the bathtub and just sort of floating there.
Really?
I'm telling you, there was a time, like the only time I felt comfortable and there was any pain relief was when I was floating in a bathtub. It was bad at a time. So it was just.
I think the bigger question is how could you lay in a bathtub?
I was cross-laying. I was very crunched. I shouldn't say laying. I was like folded in a bathtub. Yes, thank you for correcting me. Yeah, no, I really was trying to figure out whatever way I could be comfortable in a bathtub. But it just started creeping into my mind of like, how do I get better and how do I not let this happen again? It's do something, whatever it is, do something small a little bit every day. And it actually didn't even start off as do something small every single day or do something, if I'm sitting there watching TV, I should throw in a little bit of stretching. I didn't even start there. I started with just recognize the thought of that. So I didn't even start off like every time you have a thought that you should stretch, or every time you have a thought of you should go and do a walk around the block. Don't even act upon it, just recognize the thought. And as soon as I started recognizing the thought, it would pop in, 5 times a day. And not that I'm acting upon it 5 times a day, but if it came into my head 5 times a day, one I'll act upon it once. And while even if I'm sitting there eating my breakfast, I'm sitting in a squat position, or I'm finishing up notes at the end of the day, I'll sit in a squat position or sit in a V position and do a little stretch while I'm watching TV. You see it all the time. I will get down on the ground and just start doing something. And it wasn't even about, doing that every time the thought popped into my head. It was doing that or recognizing the thought and then eventually doing it every so often when it was convenient for me to do that. Like I said, I'm not going to do it when I may do it now when I'm in public places just because I'm a weirdo. But it first started off with just doing it in the privacy of my own home while I'm literally doing nothing else. Because that 1%, that little small thing that I was doing is going to be better than the nothing that I was doing sitting on the couch and watching TV mindlessly. Mm-hmm. So it just started. I guess what I want people to understand is recognize that there are times in the day where you can do little stuff. Everybody says they don't have time. I don't have time. Right. You have And in this 30-day challenge, you're going to see some of the things that I'm going to do in that like free time, like 1 minute, literally sometimes that 1 minute of free space that I'm not doing anything in. When you start recognizing and at least recognizing the thought that I could use this little bit of time right here to do something, when you start recognizing that you have more of that time throughout your day than you think you do, that's where that 1% all of a sudden starts becoming 2%. And it's just it's that compounding interest type of mentality. You know, it's all of a sudden, you know, I do have time. However I get it throughout the day, I do have time to accumulate 30 minutes in a squat position. I do have time. Now, it's a little bit easier for me because I work in a gym, but like accumulating 7 minutes in a hanging position, like you have, or if yours is a plank position and you want to hold a plank for 2 minutes, it doesn't have to be 2 minutes at a time. It's 2 minutes accumulative, 20 seconds here, 30 seconds there. But you're doing more than what you were doing,
right?
Which was nothing.
I started doing the squat when I'm brushing my teeth.
Yeah, great, perfect.
For one, I have an electric toothbrush, so I don't have to do too much work.
You're not faking around and stuff.
No. So I can, kind of go down in that squat and brush my teeth, and the toothbrush has a 2-minute timer. So you get 2 minutes in.
Easy, and it's an easy way to time that squat.
Right.
You had those 30-second increments even. That,
right.
So
you can take a break.
Right. You know where you're at.
True.
So yeah.
So that's just one simple way that you can, like you said, while you're microwaving your food, while you're, waiting in line somewhere, while you're talking on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Talking on the phone is
get headphones
more just for me because this is. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
If you're like talking on the phone, you can get headphones that you could hang or squat.
Right.
You don't have to hold up the phone to your ear.
Right. I think more because ADD and antsy all the time. If I get on the phone, I'm pacing. It's really hard for me to just sit there and talk on the phone and just sort of chit chat. I'm pacing. I'm like, I saw this one YouTube video one time where this guy was talking on the phone and like climbing up on the furniture and sort of laying. Like that's me. I've been known. There were times I have no idea why. All of a sudden I'm standing on the couch, like climbing all over the furniture. And I was it's mindless, sort of wandering and talking and moving. Like my body just felt like it needed to move, so I was moving.
Right.
That's what it was. I was listening to that just instinct to move, and that's what that's I guess the essential idea. Your body does want to move, so those thoughts that are coming into your head saying I should move, it's not sitting here like that's your body wanting to move, so or wanting to do something physical. So just if you can, try to listen to that or try to recognize and do a little bit in those times that you have during the day.
Because you're not even saying get in a workout. You're just saying
it's 1%, not about
1% better in just moving your body.
Right. And we can get into the 1% better because it's all, and it's an entire lifestyle thing. And we'll in part 2 we'll get into the nutrition side, and you'll get into that nutrition side because that's not something I'm going to speak on as I don't know, as passionately or as knowledgeably about. Not knowledgeably, if that's a word. That's a word, right? Knowledgeably?
It is now.
Well, I don't know if that's a word, but whatever. But that's not something that I'm as confident in saying, because there are still a lot of things as far as my nutrition. I've gotten a lot better, but there's still, as far as nutrition goes, that I need to be more disciplined about. I know that. But exercise is something that and I guess movement in my everyday life and the movement journey that I am on I do feel confident about talking about.
So what you're pretty much trying to say, I think, is that the 1% rule can be applied to your total life as a sum, and it can be applied to exercise, and it could be applied to nutrition, it could be applied to stress management,
Yeah.
It could be applied to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So 1% better,
You want to read. You want to read more. You got to read every day. You got to read one page every day.
So you can really take this 1% and start, just applying it to all different aspects of your life. How can I get 1% better today than I was yesterday in this? What are some of the goals, or what are some of the areas in your life that you want to kind of improve in or change? And then make those goals, make a list of those goals, and then say, okay, well, what is one thing that I can start doing now, and how will that form? So like you said, reading. So first, start realizing, oh, while I'm watching TV, I should actually be reading.
Right.
Okay, that's the first step.
Video games can suck you in for hours. I've seen people waste hours on video games.
Or phone games.
Yeah.
Candy Crush.
I was gonna say I'm in Clash of Clans. My brothers and I are in the clan together. We're crushing it. Don't Ashley hates it, but it's funny that's the type of video game where I actually do like, because you don't have to dedicate a lot of time to it. It's not like I'm sitting there for an hour on the phone and just playing this game for an hour, because you can't. I mean, some of these buildings take 14 days. Hey, no, wait. All right, moving on. Go ahead. Keep going. I was tailing off. Like, you ready to reel me back in? Go ahead. No, actually, one of the things that I wanted to touch upon in this 1% rule, the thing that I was sort of thinking about, because there's a lot of us, and I'm going to say us, and I know I'm young, and saying us doesn't really, but a lot of my clientele, a lot of my family, like my parents' age and older than my parents' age, sometimes the way to think about it is steady state is progress, because the alternative to steady state is digression, right? Decline. So
you're saying, like, if
walking,
if you can still walk smoothly, the second then your hip hurts, and then you stop walking, and then you don't walk altogether. It could go down quickly.
I have a client right now who chronically, he's very hurt all the time, very hurt, and every time I talk to him, it's the same message. It's, you got to walk more, you got to move your body more, you got to do this more, and it's like, well, that's the stuff that hurts, but that's the stuff that makes it stop hurting. Right. Like, you got to continue walking. You can't just it can't just be walk for 3 days a week, or do something for 3 days a week, and then 4 days a week you're sitting on a couch all day, or sitting at a computer all day, or sitting on a recliner, or sitting in a car, or, I mean, it can't just be 3 days a week where you're doing this, and then the other 4 days a week you're doing not this, and doing the stuff that is detrimental to your body. And that's not just fam. That's for everybody. That's for everybody. And there are times where it's like it's hard to do it, and that mental block is there, and I've been there. But I can honestly say, and I've really tried to be mindful after the workouts, after even, I shouldn't say workouts, I should say movements, walking, getting on the ground and stretching, whatever the movement happens to be. I've never completed one of those and said, oh, I hurt more. Oh, like I feel worse. I wish I wouldn't have done that.
That was awful.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've always come out and I'm like, that feels good. I feel better than I did. Mm-hmm. And it's just when you start to do that, it can start consuming and be intoxicating, and you want to implement more movement.
Your endorphins?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I mean,
makes you happier?
When
that's what I learned, at least, from
when you work
Legally
out?
Blonde.
From what?
The movie Legally Blonde.
Uh-huh.
They prove that this woman was happy because she works out, and it helps with her endorphins.
Right.
Endorphins make you happy.
Well, if it's in Legally Blonde, then
it must be true.
God, did you just cite Legally Blonde on this scientific proven? No, I'm just kidding.
We're not that scientific.
We're not that scientific, but I mean, some of the stuff that we do and discuss does help us. So if we can share that and help anybody else out, that's great too. But yeah, I mean, honestly, essentially, that's how I started formulating the idea, was just starting to recognize those thoughts in my head, and then recognizing those thoughts and those time periods, those little gaps of time that I could be doing those movements, and then just snowball effect from there. Like I'm telling you right now, that 30-day challenge that we're going to be doing on, my list is pretty extensive. There's a lot on there for like what I want to accomplish every single day, but that's because I've started recognizing throughout my day where I could implement small little movements here and there. Because 5 pull-ups in a day, 10 push-ups in a day throughout the 24 period of time is not hard to get in.
Right.
It's not hard to, I mean,
think about it. If you sat down and watched one TV show, you could complete all that stuff.
How many commercial breaks do you have in a TV show?
Right. Or, you really don't have to be sitting down while the show is on. Like, you can still be doing stuff. Which is
what I do.
So if you're sitting down all day at work because that's what kind of job you have, then you probably don't need to sit down and watch TV. If you're going to watch TV, that's fine, but think of some way that you can move while you're watching that TV.
Right.
So does that mean that you walk on the treadmill, or does that mean that you...
I'm going to get a rower.
When we get a bigger room?
I knew she was going to say that.
We don't have any room.
Rowers they fold up vertical to the wall.
Okay, if we get a rower, then we'll have to take the couch out.
Why?
Because that's where it's going to go.
Well, how about if we...
Okay.
We'll discuss this.
Conversation for a later date.
Maybe we'll get 2 rowers, and that will just replace the couch, and every time we watch TV, we
need
just
a
have to row.
rower for Arden.
What if we had... Oh, there you go. We have a TV that's powered by rowing.
Hey, there you go. So smart.
Any idea? I'm sure there's someone out there that has that.
Make a bike or a treadmill. All those different things.
Right.
Power your TV with your movement.
Treadmill would be more common because some people just have to turn it on and it just sort of goes. And then
Well, now they can recognize if you're on it or not.
True.
They're smart.
They're smart treadmills. Everything's smart something now.
But anything else you want to say about the 1% rule for today, for this episode?
No, I'm excited about I'm excited about where we're leaving it off. I think that's a good. I want people to understand sort of the essential idea behind it and how I implemented it as far as fitness goes, because that's again what I have more knowledge about and what I've done more in my life. But this part 2, I really do want to get into, and I'm excited about getting into just how it can be implemented into everything, nutrition especially.
Yeah, 1% better each day.
Yeah, for sure.
You could do it. Anyone can do it. All right. Thanks for listening.
Let's wrap it up. Next week.
Next week we're talking about the 1% rule. Continue.
Part 2.
TV.
Part 2.
Oh, that's something.
Infinity Wars Part 2.
To be continued.
To be continued. Not to be determined. To be continued.
To be continued next week.
Are we going to be announcing who won the cookbook?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Today? Are we ready to announce it?
Yeah, sure.
So, the winner of the
I wouldn't want it any other way. I'm glad we're...
is Diane Lukey.
Yeah, baby! Diane!
So, we'll send it to
you.
Nice
seeing you.
We're glad we saw you last week. We should have just gave it to you then, but...
That's okay.
It's all right.
We have to come back in. We have to see you again for Christmas.
There you go. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Have a great week.